Welcome to Hope Natural Health, the podcast inspiring you to be your best version. Join me, your host, Dr. Erin, naturopathic doctor, dog mom, cancer survivor, and girl boss weekly as we discuss all things health, hormones, and happiness with a little side of this thing called life. Welcome back to Hope Natural Health, the podcast. This week, we are going to be talking about 5 reasons why your libido might be tanked. First off, when I ask patients how their libido is, they kind of look at me funny. So your libido is your sex drive. So a lot of women that come into my office and men, they have decreased libido or it's just not where they would like it to be. So that is oftentimes a huge complaint and it can cause stress on relationships, etc. So we definitely want to figure out why their libido is in the toilet. And there are a few common reasons. There's actually tons of reasons why. But today we're going to talk about 5 common reasons that I see in practice that libido might be low. So the first one is stress. We are constantly going. And if last year taught us anything, it's that it was stressful. And it's likely continuing into this year because there are new things, new procedures. You might still be working from home. You might be transitioning back into the office. You might be doing half and half. Now kids are back in school, at least here in Arizona, are starting to get back in school. Some people moved. Like there's a whole lot of things going on. And that underlying stress can definitely cause your libido to crash. Also, if we're super stressed and going and not stopping, this puts stress on our adrenals, which pump out our cortisol. And our cortisol is our stress hormone. And if we are pumping out cortisol on a daily basis, our adrenals are going to go in the toilet as well. And they're not going to pump out as much cortisol as we would like, or the optimal level, which I like to see first thing in the morning, like a higher level, because we want a good bell curve, high in the morning, lower in the evening of cortisol. And if we don't have enough AM cortisol, this causes fatigue. And if we're tired, I don't know about you, but I have no interest getting in that bedroom. So that could be a huge reason why our libido is in the toilet. And I know we will talk and we might have already touched on some stress, et cetera, in the past, but stress is an underlying factor in a whole lot of health conditions. And it's funny because last year I was like, oh, I'm not stressed. I don't feel stressed. But in all actuality, everyone is stressed. It's just how we manage our stress that is the most important thing to remember. So if you are that person saying, I'm not stressed, I don't have any stress in my life, then I would you likely are managing it, but also to remember that we still need to take time for ourselves to help manage that stress. So whatever self-care looks like for you, that's important to do on a regular basis, if daily, if possible, but definitely once a week. And especially for moms that are so busy taking care of the entire family, I oftentimes ask them, well, when's the last time that you took care of yourself or did something for you? And they're like, well, I don't really get much alone time. It's so important that you do that so you can help manage your stress. Therefore, you might have more energy. Therefore, you might have more sex drive. Second is we can't say that hormones don't play a role in this. Now, hormones is a broad topic. So it could be anything from your thyroid out of whack to your sex hormones. Your adrenals are also a hormone. So we already kind of touched on that with the stress factor. But an underactive thyroid can definitely lead to a low libido. So if your thyroid is not optimal, it's going to cause a lot of symptoms. One being the low libido, you might be extra tired, your hair might be falling out, your bowel movements are changed, you might be cold all the time. Go back to a previous episode and I talked all about the thyroid so you can learn more about the different thyroid conditions and the symptoms that you might need to look out for. But thyroid definitely plays a role in our hormones, in hormone production. So if we don't have enough testosterone, this likely could be an issue. So that leads me to testosterone. Testosterone is usually the one that drives our libido. Men have a lot of testosterone. Women have testosterone, but not to the same degree as men, but we still need it, and it's still produced. And a lot of women are completely tanked with testosterone. And as a naturopathic doctor, it's not my first opportunity to give you the steroid or the hormone testosterone. I'm going to look at the whole body. So again, is the thyroid balanced? Is your adrenals balanced? Do we have stress under control? Are we sleeping? Are we doing some of the things that we'll talk about in one of the reasons going on to make sure that those things aren't affecting the hormone production? Also, there's some vitamins that play a role in it, like vitamin D specifically plays a role in our hormone production. So if we have a vitamin D deficiency, which I see vitamin D deficiency so often, like just giving some vitamin D is going to help with hormone production. Also is going to help with your mood and your energy. So therefore you might feel a little bit more frisky. 2, we have a hormone called DHEA, and DHEA is produced by our adrenal glands, but also it feeds through to the testosterone pathway. So some women might be super low on DHEA. So therefore I will have to boost from there so that we can help make our own testosterone naturally. And then third with the hormones, there's another one called sex hormone binding globulin, or SHBG, which is tricky, but it actually has an affinity for our testosterone and takes it out of our liver into circulation. So if I see sex hormone binding globulin really high, that means I have to work on a little bit of liver support and liver clearance so that we can clear some of that hormone and free up some of your free testosterone, therefore improving your libido. So also, like inflammation can cause a lot of these hormones to be imbalanced and wonky things to go on in the body. So if we're a crazy inflamed person, it's going to throw things off in the body. So that's something else to consider as well. There are a few medications. Now, I put birth control as its own reason, but then other medications are following under that because birth control is a libido crusher because it's full of synthetic hormones. So basically, the mechanism of the oral pill is that it cuts off the communication between your brain and your ovaries to produce any hormones, specifically, therefore, testosterone. Also, it really increases that sex hormone binding globulin that I just mentioned. Therefore, we have a whole lot of likely testosterone readily waiting to be used, and it's just like hanging out, chilling, not doing anything. Therefore, it's not increasing your libido. So that is a huge issue I see as anyone that is on the pill most oftentimes has a low libido. So if you're listening to this and you're on the pill, I guarantee you probably have no libido. And as soon as you go off of it, which happens commonly, your libido returns because we are now starting to make our own natural hormone and our body's not confused as to what's going on. Other medications that can contribute to low libido are antidepressants or anti-anxiolytics. Most commonly, I see this as a side effect. And I'll have some patients ask me, like, well, can you prescribe me another one? Because I have zero libido. And I'll say, well, it's not really something I would do because the same thing's going to happen again. It's just a side effect of that actual medication. Steroids also will crush libido. So if you're on a round of steroids for whatever the case may be, if it's for surgery or an illness or whatever, like that's going to crush libido too. Usually steroids most times are temporary, so hopefully you will bounce back. But most people are on antidepressants or an anti-anxiolytic like an SSRI, Zoloft, things like that for quite some time. So that is a definite libido crusher. And then the last one is kind of a combo, but it would be because you're not sleeping well. Sleep is so big because we make a lot of our hormone while we sleep. And again, if you're not sleeping, you're likely fatigued, and then fatigue leads to not wanting to have any sort of intimacy. So poor sleep can cause that. There are studies that men with mild obstructive sleep apnea will produce lower amount of testosterone than the average man that does not have mild obstructive sleep apnea. So the studies are mostly always done on men, but I can assume if it happens to men, it's going to happen to women because we don't make as much testosterone. But like I mentioned, we still need some. So we've got to be sleeping. I mean, sleep is one of the foundations of health. So if you're new to the podcast and listening to this, go back to one of the first episodes that I spoke about the foundations of health. And you can always purchase my Healthy Habits course. to really get those dialed in and get those foundations underway before we actually dig into overall healing. Alcohol and drugs, big libido crushers. And yes, our confidence may rise if we've had a couple drinks. However, it is a libido crusher, and as well as drugs or any narcotic or something like that can cause the libido to go into the toilet. And actually, this is an interesting one, but there were some studies that too much or too little exercise can also be a libido crusher. So it kind of goes back to that whole cortisol and stress response. So if we're exercising like crazy, we're going to eventually tank our adrenals. Therefore, it's going to cause this stress response and cause us to be actually more tired than anything, which definitely has a role in our libido. So it's super interesting because we've been told like, yeah, well, exercise is great. And I actually just pulled someone off exercise a couple weeks ago because she was exercising because she knew that it was going to make her feel better, but it was actually making her feel worse. So if you are listening and exercise is making you feel worse, let's pull back. Like, not to say don't move and be a couch potato, but don't do the high intensity training. Don't do the boot camps. Like, go for walks, do yoga, like super gentle on the body so we don't stress it out anymore and cause more inflammation, etc. That can therefore dampen and disturb our hormones, not only testosterone, but all of them. So what can we do? Well, there's a lot of, medications that you can take to boost libido. But as a naturopathic doctor, I like to get to the root cause. So I want to figure out what is going on. Is it due to stress? Is it due to your adrenals? Is it due to your thyroid? Is it due to your sex hormones? Are you on a medication? Are you not getting enough sleep, etc.? So I'm going to try and figure out exactly what is going on. So therefore we can get to the root cause, address it, and move forward. And by doing that, we test. So this will be a common theme in the podcast is I will recommend testing for everyone because I don't like to guess because it's such a big, broad subject as far as what's going on. It could be this, this, or this. And we have to test to see exactly what it is because your blood doesn't lie. So I recommend getting comprehensive testing. Look at those hormones. Look at the thyroid. Look at your adrenal glands and see what is going on with your overall production. And then consider I'm on this medication. Do I really need to be on this medication? A lot of times we just start taking medications and we just continue to take them. So ask yourself, do I really need this medication? Have I tried weaning myself off? I actually do not recommend doing that without a physician assistance with your weaning off schedule, but you could always go back to your physician and say, I want to try not taking this medication to see how I do. And you can always go back on it, or maybe if you wean off too fast and you need it. So there is a time and a place for these medications, but a lot of times we continue to take them when we may not need them. So that's something you can address. And then with the sleep and exercise, sleep, again, there's so many people out there that struggle with sleep. So have you been tested for sleep apnea? That can be a huge problem with sleep. Are you not having a good bedtime routine? Are you having caffeine too late in the day because you're so tired you need caffeine to function? All of these things I ask, it's why are we not sleeping? Is it due to hormone imbalance? Are we in that menopause state where sleep is effective because of hormones? So there's a lot of factors that can go into why these things are happening. And that's where, as a naturopathic doctor, we can figure that out. So I know that libido is a big issue with a lot of patients, and it's one of those things that kind of dwindles as we age and get older, unfortunately. But there is hope, and there are things that we can do to fix it. But more importantly, I want you to figure out exactly why it is, instead of just taking a medication or throwing a dart at the reason why, or saying, oh, I need to absolutely go on testosterone, which, yeah, it might be indicated. But again, let's look at all these other issues that I brought up today and see if any of those other things are going on. So that concludes today's episode. If you enjoyed this, I would love a short review. It's really helping out this new podcast for more people to see it and listen to it and view it. So if you can, leave a review. You can also share it to friends and family, share it on Instagram, tag me. I would love to hear your thoughts, and we will see you all next week.